Oh yeah, the NEC XM29 Plus is a 29-inch RGB monitor that accepts 240p signals flawlessly. The only difference that I know of between the normal XM29 and the Plus is that it has controls built onto the monitor itself. However, the XM29 requires a RD-346E remote to make monitor adjustments. These remotes are actually quite common and can run between $20 to $30 on eBay. Would also like to mention that the XM29 Plus only requires this remote for DGOS. Alright, let's get to the video inputs now. Video 1 has S-video in and out. It also has stereo input and output, as well as a composite input and output through BNC. Video 2 is exactly the same thing, offering the same video and stereo inputs and outputs as Video 1. RGB 1 is RGB that is accepted through a sub-dB15. Since the XM29 requires RAW/C sync, I need a sync stripper in line to strip the video out of the sync. I used a sync strike to do this. So what we have here is an arcade forged sync strike. RGB through a Scart comes in as an input, then comes out as a RGB through a sub-dB15 after stripping the video out of a normal composite video sync. RGB2 is accepted through BNC. For old school 240p games, use the horizontal sync, not the vertical sync. Unlike the Sony PVM20L5, the NEC XM29 models require RAW/C sync. The easiest route is to go to www.retrogamingcables.com to get this female Scart to BNC adapter with a sync stripper built in. Oh, and I forgot to mention that this monitor also accepts signals 480p and higher. This includes XGA, VGA, and Super VGA. So basically, you're looking at an all-in-one video game monitor. Okay, what I'd like to do now is talk about the two kinds of horizontal sync used for old school console games. In the previous video, I mentioned it was composite sync and raw sync. I was actually wrong. Composite sync and raw sync are the same. The other sync is composite video sync. This sync is exactly what it is. It's composite video used for sync. And pin 20 on a Scart is composite video. Composite sync, or C-sync/raw sync, is composite video sync minus the video. For you guys out there who use HDMI upscalers and those who use component video transcoders, this is something you don't have to worry about, as these devices are not picky about sync. And I'd like to also remind everybody that's listening that Scart is not RGB, it's a cable. That's all it is. So now I'm going to go to my dipstick settings to show you how I instructed the monitor to sync. Basically, I just copied the manual. I left 2 and 7 on and everything else off. Now, in order to hook all of my retro RGB consoles to my NEC XM29 Plus, I need a Scart splitter. That is, of course, unless I want to keep plugging them in individually and risking damage to Scart plugs. So, what was that? You want to see what Scart splitters to use and not? Well, of course you do.
Yeah.
The band bridge 5-way Scart splitter is what I personally use. I have seen absolutely no RGB degradation. There are two versions, both perform great with RGB. This one requires an external 12 volts DC. The cool thing about this version is that when you turn a console on, it automatically switches over without mashing buttons. This pile of horseshit is known as the Lindsay 5-way splitter. Do not get this one. It is a cheap piece of shit, and it also has an issue with the 5 volts DC that comes out of pin 8 of the Scart bleeding into the other consoles. I'm guessing S-Video was the other port. This is actually the first Scart splitter I ever purchased. You might have seen this on old videos I made back in 2008 or 9. It does have slight RGB degradation. It also has an issue with the Scart slipping out of the socket. Now, this 5-way Scart splitter you might have seen on eBay. It works really well, and believe it or not, I could not see a whole lot of RGB degradation, but it did perform well with no voltage bleed. The only problem was the stereo had a hum. I guess it just was not grounded correctly. Alright, so now that we got all that shit out of the way, let's see this NEC XM29 Plus in action. It has now come to my attention that most people are going with the HDMI upscaler route. Although this is the easiest way to play old school games on your LCD, it's not even close to the quality you would get on an RGB monitor, unless of course you don't mind overprocessed images with no scan lines and video lag. Looking here at Sonic in HDMI, I can see that his head looks like a jagged pixelated mess. This is not what the programmers intended for him to look like. Now check him out in RGB. Also remember, it is impossible to get a good pic of a video game image on a CRT monitor, and I'm using a $3,200 Nikon D800. Now let's take a look at the Punisher in HDMI. Now here he is in RGB with scan lines. You know what? I originally was not going to go any further on this subject, but comparing is so much fun for me. And guess what? Fuck it. I do want to talk about this. Figure It Out, or Figure It Out Productions did a video based on this RGB to HDMI converter. Basically saying nothing has a better picture than his upscaler, including an RGB monitor. So before I start, I just want to say I have nothing against the guy. I just want to express my opinion on why an RGB monitor is better than his setup. So let's talk about video upscaling lag. To test lag, I use this wonderful Mega Drive ROM. You can Google Sega Genesis 240p test. This should get you in the vicinity to download the ROM and put it on your Sega EverDrive. Once you have this ROM, you can test color bars, grid, linearity, and grayscale. Well, of course, my video recorder's white balance would have to be off now, wouldn't it? Anyways, you can also use it to test the stereo on your old video game consoles. So if you have an RGB monitor, I suggest getting this ROM on either the Genesis or the Dreamcast because it helps vastly with white balance, geometry, and raster. I'm not quite sure what the scroll test does, but I use it to test video lag. Pay attention to the background. Notice there is no smudging at all. We'll come back to this test with the HDMI upscaler. And finally, the manual lag test. You basically wait for the shapes to line up perfect and press the button. And as you can see, human error has lag. So there are three variables on testing lag: human error, upscaling, and TV lag. With the few zeros I've got, you can tell the RGB has zero lag. I have 0.5 frames of lag. So now that we got the RGB to HDMI upscaler hooked up, let's start with the scroll test. Remember when I said pay attention to the background? You can see the mountain smudging. And finally, the manual lag test. Damn, that's a lot of lag. We'll take 0.5 frames off for human error and make it a 4. Either way, that is horrible. To be fair, it could be my TV, but even if it were 2.5 frames of lag, that would be detrimental to certain games, such as Mega Man on the Nintendo. But before I go out and hook up my RGB Famicom to the HDMI scaler, I just wanted to mention that if you like the video quality, it is not the work of Dracon. Dracon ruined my first RGB Famicom, melting the back end and shooting jizz all over the Famicom's components. I would avoid commissioning this jerk-off for any mod work. He better hope I never run into his ugly ass. However, on a lighter note, Skips modded my new AV Famicom for RGB completely for free. I just wanted to give a shout out to my boy Skips for hooking me up with the best looking RGB mod I have ever seen. His work is truly amazing and professional, and I would recommend him for any console mod.
And now, for another episode of Let's Play Mega Man with the biggest dickhead in the world, Phone Door.
Fucking jump, and he fucking jumps. Come on, open. Oh shit, man, are you fucking serious? There's a delay from left to right and on the buttons. So when you jump and fall, you basically have to guide your guy, and if you can't guide him quick enough, then you're gonna fucking die. Especially in these levels. This game requires precision button pressing, seriously. Especially this stage. Yeah, well, whatever, man. Let's see if I can even get through this. Oh, come on, can you just open up? We're being a fucking. You see how it smudges? The background smudges when you move. It's soft, then it's sharp. Soft, sharp. Soft. Just look at the background here. Soft, sharp. Soft, sharp. What that's doing is the HDMI is actually trying to process this image and scale it, but it's actually too slow. That's why it can't keep up. So if you can't see that there's a delay, you know what I mean? I don't know what to say. I'm a poet and didn't know it. I have to press it before. Oh, you're fucking nuts, dude. Whatever, man. This isn't the part I want to see. I know I'm gonna get hit there because the controls suck ass. Alright. I just have to press the jump before needing it. Jump. Oh, I pressed that fucking button, man. I pressed the fucking button. Whatever, man. Come on, you fucking oyster or whatever the fuck you are with a hard hat on. What the fuck are you? What the fuck is that? Mega Man's weird. I like this game though. I like it because it's hard. I just don't like games that are hard because of controls. And this game has good controls. It just has shitty controls with this HDMI. You fucking, I pressed the jump button. Like I said, you see that? Alright, so now let's see how well I do on an NEC XM29 monitor. Now here we're going, asshole. Why don't you wait? Then I gotta wait fucking 45 minutes for this thing to come back. Got all day for this shit. See, I can actually guide it. You do have to jump just slightly before. Yeah! Yeah, whatever. You little fucking dipshit. Why can't Mega Man shoot fucking up? I mean, fuck this asshole. So basically, lag is what prevents me the most from liking this specific HDMI upscaler. I encourage you to download the Sega 240p test ROM and run it on your own scaling devices. Perhaps you can get a better result depending on what you use. So now I'm going to compare Earthworm Jim in 720p versus 240p with scan lines. I'll let you decide which looks better. Just remember, the RGB monitor is at least 20 times better than what you see. It really took a lot of preparation to record the RGB CRT. The right distance, angle, aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and my softest lens, which happens to be my behemoth of a lens, Sigma 50 to 500 millimeter. The NEC XM29 Plus is a terrific RGB monitor that yields the same results as the Sony PVM20L5. The bonus is its 29 inches of scan line beauty. Believe it or not, I got this for a mere $25 on Craigslist. All I got to say is, one man's junk is another man's
treasure.